It was an audacious plan which, had it succeeded, would have killed thousands and crippled air travel worldwide.
Now the time has come for you to be destroyed.
This wasn't just a plot to bring down one or two airliners. At least 7, perhaps more, would have been blown out of the sky on a single day. These were the men prepared to launch those attacks using liquid bombs. The deadly explosive hydrogen peroxide was to have been disguised as harmless soft drinks. This one of a series of tests carried out by government scientists to demonstrate the viability of a liquid-based device.
That amount of high explosive would seriously injure or kill people close by, and it would cause serious structural damage to metals and plastics.
Some of the plotters had even recorded Al-Qaeda-style martyrdom videos to be released to the world after the attacks.
And now the time has come for you to be destroyed. You have nothing but to expect a flood of marked operation, volcanoes of anger and revenge erupting amongst your capital.
I only wish I can do this again, come back again and do it again, and just do it again and again until, people come to their senses and realize how, don't mess with the Muslims.
Police believed the plan was just weeks away from fruition when they launched the operation to arrest their main suspects at 11 o'clock on the evening of August 10, 2006. Just 3 hours later, the terror threat level was raised to critical, indicating an imminent attack. By 6 a.m. there was huge queues and confusion at major airports as additional security measures were introduced to guard against a new type of threat. The plotters had planned to carry their liquid explosives within small plastic drinks bottles. They'd simply have passed through the X-ray scanners undetected, while the electronic detonators would have been hidden within electrical devices like phones. A computer memory stick belonging to lead bomber Abdullah Ali had details of these 7 flights, all bound for destinations in the US and Canada. With all of the aircraft over the Atlantic around the same time, the authorities would have been powerless to act as the planes disappeared from radar one by one.
This was a hugely significant terrorist attack plan. With that number of aircraft, with the types of destinations that were being talked about, it's conceivable to think of upwards of 2,000 casualties in the air, depending on the point of detonation, whether others would have been caught on the ground as well. And these were just horrendously large numbers of potential fatalities.
For months, the police and security services had the plotters under surveillance. This was one of the properties they'd eventually raid, the bomb factory in East London. Inside, they discovered this cupboard filled with drinks bottles. The seals on some of the caps were untouched, but the liquid had been removed, syringed out through a hole in the base. The explosives would be injected in through the same tiny hole. Batteries had been filled with wires and tiny bulbs to act as detonators. In nearby woodland, bin liners and a suitcase held containers full of hydrogen peroxide. In their defence, the men said they only planned to set off small devices at iconic targets like the Houses of Parliament to protest at British foreign policy. But the jury agreed with the Crown. This was a real and deadly plot to blow apart as many aircraft as possible.
Most of the information I'll be using in this video will come from news articles and files related to the case. In recent years, the United Kingdom has witnessed a spectrum of attempted attacks ranging from homegrown, unconnected, amateurish individuals at one end to international conspiracies apparently directed by Al-Qaeda's leadership at the other. Senior counterterrorism officials describe it as the pinnacle of a series of continuing threats to the United Kingdom that began in 2004 and originate from Al-Qaeda in Pakistan. 8 out of 10 top priority terrorist investigations in the UK have some connection to Pakistan, according to a number of counterterrorism officials. Threats have emerged from other parts of the world, including East Africa, and also from entirely self-sufficient homegrown individuals. But officials say these threats do not have the severity of those coming out of Pakistan, and it is the latter that have the potential to have strategic impact say officials. In Pakistan, a British man from Binghamton named Rashid Rauf is believed to have put plotters in touch with al-Qaeda's leadership. When Abdullah Ahmad Ali, who was under police surveillance, returned from Pakistan in June of 2006, investigators covertly opened his baggage. Inside, they found a powdered soft drink, Tang, and a large number of batteries, which raised suspicions. In the following weeks, the police mounted the UK's largest surveillance operation, calling on an additional 220 officers from other forces. Asad Sawar was seen buying items that did not appear to fit with his daily needs. On one occasion, surveillance officers watched him dispose of empty hydrogen peroxide bottles at a recycling center. Sarar and Ali were seen meeting in an East London park. When MI5 covertly entered a flat being used by Ali, they found what appeared to be a bomb factory. They installed a camera and microphone, and on August 3rd, 2006, Ali and Tavid Hussein were filmed constructing devices out of drink bottles. Surveillance officers later watched Ali spend 2 hours in an internet cafe researching flight timetables. On August 9th, 2006, British police arrested 24 people for questioning. The arrests were made in London, Binghamton, and High Wycombe, Buckinghamshire. It's an overnight operation. 2 of the arrests were made in the Binghamton area, and 5 were made in High Wycombe. Firearms officers were not involved in the arrests. The key suspects were British-born Muslims, some of Pakistani descent. 3 of the suspects were recent converts to Islam. 8 of the suspects were later charged with conspiracy to murder and commit acts of terrorism. A further 3 with failing to disclose information about acts of terrorism, and 1 youth with possession of articles relating to a terrorist act. Others were released without charge. Police said they had been observing the plot evolve for months and that the investigation reached a critical point. And on the night of August 9, 2006, when the decision was made to take urgent action in order to disrupt possible execution of the plot, an undercover British agent had infiltrated the group, according to CNN sources. According to Franco Frattini, European Commissioner for Justice, Freedom and Security, the plotters received a very short message to go now, while British officers denied any explicit message existed. However, it was not clear when the attacks were planned to have been launched. The New York Times has since reported that the plans were at an earlier stage than had been initially stated. British authorities carried out a total of 69 searches of residences, businesses, vehicles, and open spaces, which netted possible bomb-making equipment and chemicals, including hydrogen peroxide. Deputy Assistant Commissioner Peter Clark said on August 21st, 2006, as well as the bomb-making equipment, we have found more than 400 computers, 200 mobile telephones, and 8,000 items of removable storage media, such as memory sticks, CDs, and DVDs, he said. So far from the computers alone, we have removed some 6 terabytes of data. It will take many months for investigators to analyze all of this data, he said. Police said they found a list of flights on a memory stick belonging to Mr. Ali following his arrest. The memory stick listed scheduled flights from 3 carriers: American Airlines, United Airlines, and Air Canada. The plotters planned to use peroxide-based liquid explosives. The Metropolitan Police said the plot involved acetone peroxide, which is sensitive to heat, shock, and friction, and can be initiated with fire on electrical charge. It can also be used to produce improvised detonators. During the trial of the co-conspirators and the conspirators, the prosecution stated that each bomber would board a plane with the necessary ingredients and equipment. They would then construct the devices mid-flight and detonate them. The hydrogen peroxide would be placed in 500 milliliters plastic bottles of the Oasis and Lucade soft drinks. A sugary drink powder, Tang, would be mixed with the hydrogen peroxide to color it to resemble a normal soft drink. Hydrogen peroxide is widely available for use as hair bleach and, along with other ingredients, can become explosive if mixed with specific strength. The mixture would be injected into the bottles with a syringe. The bottle's cap would now have been removed and the hole would have been resealed, thereby allowing the device to assemble a normal, unopened drink bottle when screened by airport security. The use of liquid explosives with dissolved powder is similar to the composition used in the July 21st, 2005 London bombings, using hydrogen peroxide and chapat flour activated by a detonator. On August 28, 2006, the New York Times reported that 7 martyrdom tapes made by 6 suspects were recovered. This number was not confirmed by the prosecution during the subsequent trial. Prosecutors at the court hearing said that the suspects had talked about including 18 suicide bombers and that they had examined Denver, Boston, and Miami as possible flight destinations to target, along with the following flights, details of which they had put on USB sticks. All flights were departures from London Heathrow Airport. They included United Airlines Flight 931 to San Francisco, California, Air Canada Flight 849 to Pearson Airport in Toronto, Air Canada Flight 865 to Trudeau Airport in Montreal, United Airlines Flight 959 to O'Hare Airport in Chicago, United Airlines Flight 925 to Dulles Airport, Washington, D.C., American Airlines Flight 131 to JFK International, and American Airlines Flight 91 to O'Hare Airport in Chicago. There was speculation in the United Kingdom that the militant Islamic organization Al-Qaeda could be behind the plot, which it has claimed was scheduled to take place only weeks after the group threatened to attack British aviation. One of the suspects' martyrdom video was taken from a fatwa by Osama bin Laden. United States Department of Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff stated the plot, which was getting close to the execution phase, was suggestive of an Al-Qaeda plot. In their martyrdom tapes, the suspects, quoted from the Quran, claimed that they were seeking revenge for the foreign policy of the United States and their accomplices, the UK and the Jews, and hoped God would be pleased with us and accept our deed. It also called upon other Muslims to join jihad and justified the killing of innocent civilians in Western countries. Press reports claimed that the bombers were funded by charities intended to help victims of the 2005 Kashmir earthquake. The FBI and Scotland Yard investigated links to militants and the flow of money to the co-conspirators. Pakistan and international press also reported that Rashid Rauf had links with the Jaish-e-Mohammed, a Kashmir militant group banned by several countries. Media reports state that he has close family ties to Maulana Masood Azhar, one of the world's most wanted criminals in India. In Pakistan, law enforcement authorities interrogated Rashid Rauf, a Briton of Pakistan descent, over his alleged key role in the plot. Pakistan Interior Minister Arafat Khan said British police were conducting inquiries in Pakistan, but were not involved in questioning Rauf. The UK Foreign Office sought Rauf's extradition from Pakistan, and it was reported that Pakistan planned to accept the request. However, in mid-December of 2006, terrorism charges against Rauf were dropped by a Pakistani judge who ruled there was a lack of evidence. Rauf's case was transferred from a terrorism court to a regular court where he faced lesser charges, including forgery. The charges were later dropped, and Rauf was reportedly killed in a U.S. drone attack in Pakistan in November of 2008. The 5 planes run by United Airlines and American Airlines, which fly regularly to Washington, Chicago, New York, and San Fran, were the primary targets the court heard. The Crown alleges 8 British men planned to carry out the small bombs and commit themselves to a martyrdom operation. All were to be detonated simultaneously as the planes crossed the Atlantic, carrying between 240 and 285 people on each plane. The group hoped to recruit as many as 18 suicide bombers. It did not confine their ambitions to blowing up just 7 airplanes, prosecutor Peter Wright alleged. He also went on to say the plan was designated to bring about what would have been a civilian death toll on an almost unprecedented scale. The suspects, all in their 20s, were arrested on August 10, 2006 in a two-day police sweep. Several commentators expressed skepticism over the allegations. Many mentioned the Forest Gate raid, the shooting of Jean-Claude de Maisance in the Iraq War, all based on intelligence that turned out to be wrong, as reasons for their doubts. Former UK ambassador to Uzbekistan, Craig Murray, was skeptical of the account of the plot. He said that none of the alleged terrorists had made a bomb, none had bought a plane ticket, many did not even have passports. He also suggested that suspected ringleader Rashid Rauf had invented the plot under torture in Pakistan. In the immediate aftermath of the first arrests, passengers were forbidden from carrying any liquids, apart from baby milk, onto flights between the United States and the United Kingdom. Since passengers could purchase beverages after passing airport security checkpoints at some American airports, gate checkpoints were also introduced at such airports. Overall, an estimated 400,000 passengers were affected because of the alerts. It has been estimated that the first day of delays cost the airlines over $175 million. As many as 20,000 bags are believed to have been misplaced at Heathrow. Following the August 2006 arrests, the New York Times blocked IP addresses in Britain from accessing a story titled "Details Emerge in British Terror Case." This arose as a result of a requirement in British law that prejudicial information about a defendant may not be published before a trial. Using software technology designed for targeting of advertising, the New York Times was able to comply with the UK's strict laws. In 2008, 8 men, Ahmed Abdul Ali, Assad Sarwar, Tanvir Hussain, Ibrahim Savant, Arafat Khan, Waheed Zaman, Umar Islam, Mohammed Gulzar, were all tried in connection with the plot. The trial began in April of 2008 with the exhibition of what were described as suicide videos made by Ali, Hussein, Sabat Khan, Zaman, and Islam, and the allegation that the suspects had bought chemicals. Intercepted emails and phone calls were not allowed as evidence at the first trial. On September 7, 2008, after more than 50 hours of deliberations, the jury found Ali, Sarwar, and Hussein guilty of conspiracy to murder, but were unable to reach verdicts on charges of conspiracy to murder by blowing up aircraft for them and Islam. 3 of the other accused were found not guilty on the latter charges. Mohammed Gulzar was acquitted on all counts. On September 7, 2009, the second jury at Woolwich Crown Court found Ali, Sarwar, and Hussein guilty of conspiracy to murder, including liquid bomb plotting, and that the targets of the conspiracy were airline passengers. The plot was said at court to have been discovered by MI5 using covert listening devices in a flat in East London. The jurors were unable to reach verdicts on the charges against Sabat, Khan, Zaman, and Islam. Islam was, however, convicted on separate charges of conspiracy to murder. At the third trial, in July 10th of Woolwich Crown Court, Savant, Khan, and Zaman were found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment for the lesser charge of conspiracy to murder. Ali was ordered to serve a minimum 20 years in prison. John O'Connor, a former commander with Scotland Yard's anti-terrorism unit, told CBC News in Canada that it's not surprising that Canadian flights were among the targets. He went on to say, "It might seem difficult for Canadians to understand that when you're looking at Canada and America, one tends to, on this side of the Atlantic, combine them as one. And I'm sure that's what the terrorists do. They see them as very close cousins. They wouldn't discriminate them against one or the other. As far as the insurgents are concerned, any Western country which is an ally of the United States is going to be seen as a legitimate target."